Hello, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be visiting one of the farmers here in Uganda. He grows hot pepper on a large scale. He grows chili on a large scale. He has helped so many other farmers to also earn a living by growing chili and growing hot pepper. He has given guidance to a lot of farmers, people who have land in the villages, but they don't know how to go about this. He's been able to teach them, train them, and also take what they produce. So if you don't know anything about pepper, you have your land, you don't know what to do with it, well, this video is for you. We're going to be visiting his farm and he's going to be taking us through how he does all this, and then he'll be sharing with us, and then you'll be able to learn and grow. Most people here in Uganda grow green pepper more than they do chili and hot pepper. But chili and hot pepper bring in the most income since they are majorly grown for export. Green pepper is grown for the local market, but most of the exporting companies export to chili and hot pepper. Because they are grown for export specifically, there is a lot that is supposed to be followed while you're growing this pepper so that it can cross the borders of Uganda to the other countries that they are taking them for sale. So this is a hot pepper episode. Hot pepper growing season 1, part 1, episode 1, season 1. So today Mr. Del Gracious is going to be showing us around his garden, and he will be answering some of the questions about growing pepper in Uganda. So if you have any questions, you can leave those questions in the comment section below. He's going to be telling us, sharing with us, what do you need to grow hot pepper? How do you care for pepper? How do you care for chili, hot pepper? There are people in Uganda who are doing this job as a full-time job, and it is sustaining their families. So he's going to be introducing himself. My name is Del Gracious Namuguzi. We are farmers and we are exporters. We supply pepper. I've been doing this job for 30 years. I began as a supplier. I used to supply a company called London Fruits, which was led by the late Edison Nkata. This crop made me so happy. I would make money, but then I had to take that money and pay off all the farmers from which I got the pepper. So I decided to also start growing, but I did not stop buying from the farmers too. So I started to grow on my own, but at the same time, I worked along with the other farmers who are growing on their properties, and I took their pepper too. So the farmers would supply to me, and then I would supply to the exporting companies. So currently I'm supplying to FFP Icemark, which is known as the biggest exporting company in Uganda right now. Now I collect pepper from farmers and then add mine and supply to companies. Sometimes I can supply 500 boxes, 700 boxes. If you're not familiar with how big a box is comprised of 4 kilograms of pepper. So he supplies about 500 boxes or 700 boxes, but these boxes are combined together with that from other farmers along with his own. So the supply depends on the orders that he has received from the exporting companies. The exporting companies would call him and ask him for what they need and the quantity they need, and then he would make sure he gets them that quantity from his farmers. So when asked about the quantity they are able to supply, He shared that when it's a rainy season, the crops are in plenty. There is a lot, they grow a lot. They can produce about 2,000 boxes. But when it's a hot weather, they can produce up to about 500 to 300 boxes. So it means that during the rainy season, there is a lot of pepper, and the companies get all the supplies they want. Then they get to also supply to local companies which may want pepper. They can supply twice a week to the company that he's supplying to currently. So when the orders are few, since he's got so many companies that reach out to him to be supplied pepper, the market almost does not run out. Though what happens is a price fluctuation. When the season is of plenty, prices may fluctuate, but the products will still be taken. So his job as a lead farmer, he makes sure all the farmers that work under him get all their products sold. His job is to make sure he gets the market for the products that the farmers produce, the farmers who work under him. So this farm is his personal farm. He grew chili on 2 acres, but he also works with other farmers who grew hot pepper. Some of them are in Gomba. So he will go to Gomba and collect all that they have harvested, and then he will carry all that to Mitala Maria, which is his collection center, and they will be sorted. Then the company will come with its car and take all that they have been able to harvest. So that's our visit today in this farm. Next time we're going to be continuing from here in our part 2 as Mr. Del Gracious continues to show us how he does this job, what are the things that he goes through, what are the things that we can learn from him, and how he works along with other people in this area to carry on this job. Today we're going to be continuing with the conversation where we left it off. Mr. Del Gracious is going to be continuing to show us around his garden as we continue to learn today. Chili is one of the crops that does not have a higher demand as compared to hot pepper, because the company may have an order of 200 boxes or 500 boxes of chili, yet they would ask for 2,000 boxes of hot pepper, which shows that for Ugandan farmers, chili is not highly demanded as compared to hot pepper. We have a bigger market as Ugandan exporters for hot pepper than we do for chili. So one of the biggest challenges we have is hot pepper segregates soil. Sometimes when you grow hot pepper on a piece of land, hot pepper may refuse to come back. How do you know that? He's going to be explaining a little bit more, showing us his garden and how they experienced such an issue. So they planted hot pepper in this piece of property on 2 acres. They harvested once, and then later on, when they were supposed to harvest the second time, they brought these tiny leaves, because when they bring these tiny leaves, they will produce a very tiny fruit, and a very tiny fruit is not required on the market. It will not be taken by exporters. It will be considered reject. which means the farmer will make losses only. So the best thing for a farmer, if this happens, is to just abandon this land and cut their losses. Because if you continue to invest in such, it's of no effect. You lose even much more, yet you will not be able to redeem the crops. So what they did is to forget about these 2 acres of hot pepper and concentrate on chili. The crop has to produce a bigger leaf, just similar to this one, because this plantation is still okay, but it won't be long before it too gets sick. But currently, this leaf is the kind of leaf that the crop is supposed to produce for you to know that it will bring a healthy fruit. It will produce this kind of fruit when it has a healthy fruit, a healthy leaf. Now you see this fruit, this is the size. This size is good, it can be taken on the market. So it grows and it is able to spread, and then you can easily harvest healthy fruits. Now we asked if they do not have any medication that they can use to treat this kind of situation, this tiny leaf situation. As of now, we do not have any remedy for such tiny leaves. We do not understand what this disease is called, but when this thing comes, it starts with one plant and then it goes to a second plant. It is spread by the bee. The bee will come to fertilize this plant, and then it will fly from one plant to another, and in that process the bee will spread that disease or defect throughout the whole plantation. There is no medication. We have tried all kinds of medications, but we think it is due to the soil. Sometimes they say the soil is not fertile, but no, the soil is fertile because they germinate. Some think it's seeds, but someone can come. Some people have taken seedlings from this particular place and took and grew in other parts of the land, and their hot pepper grew healthy without having this defect. So we think it's this particular land that could be having that defect. So you see, they become like this. When they turn like this, they will not have a comeback. They cannot return to normal growth. So the best solution is to forget about the plantation. So when you look at this is one of the challenges that farmers can face. Like, they had to abandon these 2 acres when this situation turned like this, and they had to continue with other things. These are some of the losses they make on the job. For a crop to grow healthy and grow to the size required, it gets all the energy and all the nutrition from its leaves. When the leaves are tiny, it won't be able to get what it needs to grow fat and grow to the size that is required on the market. They even tried to plant hot pepper. Since the piece of property is big, they planted far away on the same property, and the same thing happened with hot pepper. So we asked him whether this situation won't affect the chili. It cannot. We have discovered that chili can easily grow in this place. Though they cannot grow hot pepper on this property, this same property has given them very good returns of chili. So the defect that hot pepper has is not affecting chili. And he shared with us also that on this same property where hot pepper has refused to return, you can easily slash and remove everything and burn all the crops for hot pepper and put chili. Chili will come back and grow healthy. It won't be affected by this same defect. So this goes to tell you that as much as hot pepper segregates land chili does not segregate land as much as hot pepper. Where hot pepper cannot grow, chili can grow. So he took us to this piece of property that is 2 acres. This whole property where we are at is 7 acres, and he's using 2 acres to grow chili. But they had used 2 acres also to grow hot pepper. But what happened to the 2 acres they had used to grow hot pepper is, after just 1 harvest, all the crops they had grown died off. How this came about is a particular defect that they think is in the land that does not work well with hot pepper. So this is going to be the ending of part 2 of this visit. Next time we're going to be continuing with part 3 of this visit. When you are looking at Uncle Moi's land, you will realize that there are some trees. Everything is not chili. There are some trees because the land he was able to secure to rent was filled with trees, had a portion filled with trees. So he went ahead to grow crops alongside the trees. But again, he's going to be telling us in this video what kind of crops that you can grow alongside chili, and what kind of crops that you should never attempt to grow alongside chili or hot pepper. But also he mentions that if you can afford it, it's best for chili or hot pepper to be grown alone without any other kind of plant. But sometimes there is scarcity of land, and the land available to you may have another plantation. So the question is, which plantations can allow chili or hot pepper to grow and which can't? Alright, that's what we're going to be learning in this video. Let's go right to this video. No, you can still grow pepper alongside these trees while they are still young, but you cannot grow pepper along with beans, maize. You cannot plant pepper alongside maize. These are some of the crops that contradict with pepper. You cannot grow pepper alongside eggplants. When you do that, you will spoil your pepper growth. The truth is, the pepper plantation is best grown on its own, without mixing it with any other crop. What causes us to mix it is lack of land, because the owner of this property will tell you, grow, but I'm going to plant my trees. Then you will do your calculation that by the time these trees grow to the point where you cannot plant pepper in, pepper harvesting period will be over. But pepper is best grown alone and on its own. That's when you will make the best amount of profits from pepper, when you grow it on its own without any other crop. Now, the best way to plant pepper is to plant it 3 feet by 3 feet. When you plant your crop here, make sure you have 3 feet this side and 3 feet this side. You better plant it in a row, plant it in a line, and make sure you are spacing it 3 feet by 3 feet. You can tie a rope, and then you can follow the line of the rope to make sure you are planting your pepper in a line. And then you can skip 3 feet, plant your next plant 3 feet, and then plant your other plant. And also have 3 feet on the left, and then you can do another line. And then the best thing you can practice is to get millet,
bulrush millet, and then you can plant it at the edges of your plantation, because when you do that, it will help protect your garden. Or you can use tobacco. When you plant it at the edges of your garden, it will trap all the sorts of insects that might want to make their way into your garden. And when you do that, it will help you protect your garden from so many attacks, insects that will cause you to be spraying heavily. So when you plant that tobacco or millet at the edges of your garden, it will help you use less sprays during the time of growing your pepper. So we asked him about organic crops. Can you grow without spraying at all? With the kinds of insects that we have here that attack crops mercilessly, it's completely impossible for you to say you won't spray at all. So we have sprays that will help your garden, but you have to calculate. So if the spray takes 4 days, then or 7 days, finish all those days without harvesting. But this is easier done with chili. For hot pepper, if we harvest on Friday, it means we are going to harvest again on Tuesday. And if we harvest on Tuesday, it means we're going to harvest again the following Friday. So if the medicine is telling you you need to spend 7 days without harvesting, when the time comes for you to harvest your pepper, stop using that medicine. Don't use that medicine if your pepper is ready for harvesting. Now we have medicine like nimbecidine. For nimbecidine, even if you spend 3 days, you can harvest, but it's not so strong, so it cannot fight insects heavily. That's why, to help nimbecidine, we also use traps. When we put in traps, these traps can trap insects, which will help your garden to survive and continue without spraying all the time. So when you look at my garden, it has those traps. I'll show them to you when we go in that garden. These traps will trap these insects, and your garden won't be attacked heavily. We had also placed traps in this hot pepper garden, but we removed them since we chose to abandon this plantation after it got affected with that tiny disease. The biggest disease that pepper has is weeds. When you remove weeds from your pepper garden, you can even spray and spend 2 weeks or 2 weeks and a half without requiring to spray again, as you are being helped by the traps, as they also trap the rest of the insects. As you can see, this garden, we make sure we take care of it and it's clean. We make sure there are no weeds in this garden. We don't keep grass in the garden. So every time we see that the weeds are coming, I will tell them to come and weed the garden, so we keep it weed free. When it comes to hot pepper and the kinds of chemicals that are accepted to be used in the garden, you have to spray every week. In your garden, if harvesting is done on Friday, then the next day on Saturday, that's when you should do the spraying of your garden. Then after you have sprayed on Saturday, the next time you spray, it should not again be Saturday. It should be Sunday, because you have to make sure that you give the crops 7 days before harvest, so that the medicine you have sprayed wears off. And the recommendation or the standard is, when all our products are taken at the airport, there is a laboratory used to check these crops to make sure that the amount of chemical it is not supposed to exceed 0.1. So if the chemical takes 7 days, and if you have sprayed this Saturday, when you spray again next Saturday, this chemical that you have sprayed is not yet completely over. There is still 0.1 in the fruit. So when you spray again on the next Saturday, you will make the crop to have 0.2, because according to the standard, you are allowed to harvest when the crop has 0.1 after the 7 days, but not 0.2. So when you spray again next Saturday and then you decide to harvest, you will think that you spent the 7 days without spraying, so the chemical was off. But when you had sprayed when there is still 0.1 in your crops, so now when you harvest again, you'll take your crops to the company and they will check them and they'll tell you your crops are full of chemicals, we are not taking them. Even if you're using the required medication, it is important to follow this. Make sure when you spray this Saturday, skip the next Saturday, so that by that Saturday your crop has 0. Then spray after that Saturday when the crop now has 0 chemical in them. Now when it comes to harvesting, you start to use dudu-oxalimentine. We also use nimbecidine. We put these two together and then they will make 2 in 1, and we spray on our crops. Dudu-oxalimentine and nimbecidine, they will help you to kill the insect and also clear the leaf. One of them is a fungicide and another is an insecticide. So we put them together and spray the crops, which will give you a good leaf. Now, like the previous crop I told you, which has a small leaf and does not give you a good fruit. So when you spray these two together, it helps your crops to give you good leaves, which in turn will give you good fruits. Now you see the other chili pepper, it has no problem at all. All we have to do is to maintain our spraying schedule. We have 2 kinds of sprays that we use. We use powdered, but we also use water spray. The powdered medicines that we use include bacteriamethrine, which is made by the Bukola company. It helps to kill insects that bring problems to our leaves, to the leaves of the crop. Now, this is how you go about spraying your garden. If you're going to spray tomorrow, you have to come a day before your spraying day and scout your garden. This scouting is going to help you know what kind of chemical you're supposed to spray in your garden. Do not just pick any chemical and come and spray. Scout your garden before the spraying day to find out the state of your garden. When you see some insects, some diseases in your garden, then you will know the appropriate medication that you should be spraying that will be effective to help your garden and heal the defects that may be going on. Now, when you find out the defect in your garden during scouting, that's when you go and buy the medication that you're going to use. If you do not know the kind of medication that your crop will need, you can pick a plantation and go with it to these places where we buy this medication, show them your crop. They'll be able to advise you on what kind of spray that you can use. The kind of medication that you might need to spray may be very strong and poisonous, yet you need to treat your garden and you are in the harvesting season. The problem that presents is you spray the medication and you skip harvesting. You can remove those which are extremely ready, harvest them and throw them away, so that you do not spoil the overall market for every farmer when you try to send off crops which are poisonous. Because when you do that, you don't only spoil the market for yourself, but you also spoil it for the rest of the Ugandans, because then it will be noted in the European markets that Uganda brings poisonous fruits. Now you have to keep changing the medication, because now the medicine that can chase a black spot, now you can check this crop, what it has here. I don't know the English name. In Uganda it's called chikata. And when it has come into your crop, the medicine used to treat this is the powdered medicine, the same as the one used to grow, the same as the kind used on tomatoes. We have toprite, bacteriamycin, Ciovet. That's the kind we use, but we don't use Indophil. Only those of tomatoes use Indophil. We don't use Indophil on pepper. And also when you're measuring the amounts to use on your crops, you have to use amounts that will not stick to the crop, especially when you're using this powdered medication to treat your garden, because when your medicine is attached to the crop, when the crop goes for checking, it will not pass the check mark. It will be found to have high quantities of chemicals. There are people, when they are directed particular measures to use for their crops, like if they tell you use 50 mils and they feel they want their crops to heal faster, they will use 100 mils. When you do that, you will kill the crop, because you will have given it overdose. Just like you, an individual, if you go to the hospital and they tell you this pill, take one today and then take another tomorrow. If you take both of them today, would that affect you? There you will kill yourself. And that's the same for the crops. Only use the measures which have been recommended to you. What are some of the benefits of spacing pepper? Spacing your pepper helps you as an individual. As you are growing your pepper, as you are caring for your pepper, you need to pass through. When this pepper is fully grown, you will even fail to find any spot that you can pass. Yet, when you force your way through, you will break it. That's why it's important for you to space. And when it comes to weeding, how will you weed if you didn't space your pepper? One of our biggest challenges is pepper is very expensive to grow. If you grow it in a place, sometimes it can even die, just like this place. 2 acres and they all died off. And now you see the other part where chili is. I'm always having workers in the garden weeding the whole area. The other thing is you can grow pepper. By the time pepper is ready for harvest, the demand for pepper is not big, yet your harvest is plenty. And by the time there is scarcity in the market and now the prices are high for pepper, at that time you do not have pepper because you sold at the low price, and now you do not have any pepper to sell when the prices are high. That's another challenge we face. Now you see chili, previously 1 kilogram was being sold at 5,000, but as I'm speaking right now, 1 kilo is sold at 2,000. Now when it comes to hot pepper, right now a box is being sold at 40,000, which means each kilo is at 10,000. That is for the company where I deliver. That's the price rate currently. But when the produces are huge, then they will reduce the prices, and now they will start buying 8,000 per kilogram. For those of you who count in dollars, when it comes to Ugandan shillings, $1 is equivalent to 3,600 Ugandan shillings. Now, for a farmer who is just starting, you don't need to make all these calculations for the farmer. Don't calculate all these things. All he needs to know is this: when you're growing pepper, in your mind, set yourself that a box is going to be sold at 5,000 Ugandan shillings. when you set your mind like that, even when prices change in the market, your brain has been set at a place where it cannot receive a disappointment. Also tell the beginner, if you grow 1 acre of pepper, you'll be harvesting 200 boxes each week. Now, if you're selling 5,000 each box, 2,000 boxes, how much will you be earning? That's 1 million Ugandan shillings per week. What kind of crop here in Uganda can you grow and harvest every week? 1 million. So as a beginner, when you calculate it like that, it will help you to love the crop and grow the crop. That way, if by the time your harvest comes and the box is at 10,000, that will just encourage you, because even if the prices fluctuate, they will never go below 5,000. They still take all your produces. They don't say we won't take the pepper because we don't have a market. What happens is they'll take your pepper at a low price. But even when the prices go low, they don't go below 5,000. That is for hot pepper specifically. How big of the space should I begin with for me to be able to make profits? For you to benefit and for you not to struggle with your produces, it's best for you to start with 1 acre. When you grow less than an acre, you struggle with your produces because you have to transport them to the company, and also transporting these is high. But when you grow on a very large scale, the company itself will bring the car to you. Now, for me, since I'm a supplier, if I'm the one buying these produces from you, it also encourages me, because I know if I drive my car to your garden, I know that I will get sizable amount of produces. Now I'm going to be going to Sese to remove the now I'm going to be going to Sese. That's where the hot pepper farmers have harvested from. I'm going to be going there to pick what they have produced. Now, if I go there, I know that I'm going to be able to get more than 100 boxes of pepper. That way I can calculate that if I spend this much fuel to go pick their produces, I'm still able to make a living off the produces. The chili garden that Mr. Del Gracious was taking us through was completely weed free. You could not find a single weed in that garden. So we asked him how he maintains it like that. When it comes to farmers, we negotiate and agree on portions. You give a person their portion, and their job is to make sure there is no single weed, and never allow them to grow grown weeds. They have to grow the weeds while the weeds are still young. The way they are being paid is every person gets their portion. If they are able to weed their portion in 2 days, you pay them. If they take a week to weed their portion, then you pay them after a week. That's how I negotiate and work with those who help me in the weeding. Now you see this chili? We buy it from sockets. We buy the seeds from sockets. Seeds that come through the sockets grow very well. If you want to get these sockets, you can get them on Entebbe Road, or there are some people who sell them that you can buy them from. When you get your seeds from the socket, now when you look at the other kind, it's a different kind, and the way it grows is different. Now this one grows better, and it's the one that is highly demanded on the market. So we asked him if growing chili is easier than growing pepper, or whether they all take the same intensity in growing. No, growing chili is not as hard as growing pepper, as growing hot pepper. We asked him about water. Chili does not like heavy waters. Chili needs water when it's a hot weather. But when you grow this chili in a swampy land, when it rains, that water is too much. It will fill your pepper, and your pepper will start to become reddish or yellowish, and all the leaves will be shed, and then you will lose your pepper. Now, you see this pepper? You can see that it's a hot weather and it's being hit by the sun rays, but you will still harvest it and it will still be looking good. And I've sold it at a very good price. I've sold a kilo at 4,000, which is a good price. We asked him how someone can take care of chili in order to get better produces. When it comes to chili, you do not spend so much time in chili the same way you do hot pepper. When you plant your chili, all that is left to do is spraying. But also, the kind of insects that disturb chili are not the same as the kind of insect that disturb hot pepper. Chili is not highly infected and affected by pepper, by insects that affect pepper the way pepper gets affected. Now, also when it comes to the medications, what you require to spray on chili is more affordable than what you require to spray on hot pepper. Because with chili, if you have dudu cyper, you can just use that. And 1 liter of dudu cyper costs 16,000. Now, hot pepper needs sprays like Excel Harvester. 1 liter costs 80,000. You can use that liter for the whole garden and for a while, but it's more costly. And for it, you use 30 mils. Yet here, for dudu cyper that we use here in chili, you use 50 mils. With Harvester, you use 30 mils in a 20 liter jerrycan. So hot pepper needs more ingredients, and it is attacked by diseases for leaves, diseases that attack the actual fruit, and it also gets attacked by moth. If they find moth in your pepper, they just throw away your pepper, and the only way you can treat moth is by treating the leaf. Yet the medication that cures moth is the kind of medication that was prohibited on the market. That is Striker. Striker is not allowed in the market. So the best thing that you can do is to make sure you weed your garden, take care of it, make sure there is no single weed, no grass. Also use traps so that you can minimize the amount of medication that you need to spray. That way you can take care of your garden without using so many chemicals. One of the major diseases that disturbs chili is this. This kind of disease will shed off all the leaves from the chili plant. And when that happens, the plant will dry up. It will no longer produce fruits. When that disease comes, it is really dangerous. It can cause you a big loss. The only way to prevent this is to uproot the affected plant and throw it away or burn it. This disease can be spread from one plant to another. That's why it's important for you to uproot it when you see it in your garden. When it comes to chili, the exporters will take it when it is still in the green color. When chili turns red, the exporters will not take it on the market. The market for red chili is very, very little. It's only once in a while when you get someone who wants red chili, but most people take it when it is still in the green form. We asked him whether chili is not affected by any other disease, and he told us that chili is affected by black spots. That black spot is spread by the fruit fly. When the fly comes into your crop with black spot, that spot will affect your crop, and from that crop it can spread to another crop, again by the help of the fly. When you weed your garden, it gives it a greater chance to fight against diseases. When you weed your garden, you will not be affected by the black spot because it comes from the weeds onto your crops. So when you keep your garden completely weed free, you will realize that you will not get affected by the fruit fly. We asked about the other advantages of keeping your garden weed free. The other advantage of keeping your garden weed free is you will get less crops which are affected by insects and pests. And when that happens, it means that you will get greater yields because a lot of your crops will be good for export. But when you do not weed your garden during sorting, a lot of your crops will be declared as rejects because it will have the effects of the weeds that are in your garden. So when you keep your garden weed free, it will increase your yields. We asked about mulching the crops in the garden. Should we mulch them? Because we realized in his garden all his crops are not mulched. So we asked about that. Now the issue with mulching. When you mulch your garden, these insects that cause diseases to your pepper, they will hide underneath the mulch during the time of spraying. So by the time it clocks 9 o'clock and you have already sprayed your garden, those insects will crop up from underneath the mulch and they'll come back to your crops, making it hard for you to get rid of those insects. So because of that, we just make sure that we weed the garden and not give the insects an opportunity to hide underneath mulch. When we are spraying, we spray everything that is in this garden. You see these trees, these young trees? When I'm spraying, I also spray them. Because if I don't spray these trees, then the insects which are in the trees will crop out and come to the crop and cause harm to my crop. We asked about the threads. We saw a lot of threads in the garden. These threads, they help me separate this garden. I can demarcate and know that I have worked on this garden. Now you see this garden, when you see up there, you will see a thread. And that is the side where we harvested last time. So when you reach there, you also see these threads. It helps me know that last time I did harvest in this portion. So when I get another order, then I can harvest in this other portion. But also when I'm spraying, these threads help me. If I spray that side, then I will know that next time I'm coming to spray this other side. But also it helps me know that I did not spray the other side, so when I get an order, I can go and harvest from the side which I did not spray. That's why these threads help me to demarcate this garden and know how to easily manage it. Because you cannot spray this whole plantation all at once. So we spray it in portion and also we harvest it in portion. Those portions, they will help us to harvest throughout the season without harvesting crops that are still having chemicals in them, and also without harvesting crops which have disease. But also when you have a portion that is having a particular disease affecting them, I demarcate that portion so that I can heavily treat that portion. That is how these ropes help me in this garden. So with this partitioning, I always harvest. I'm always harvesting. There is no single time when I cannot harvest if I get an order. We asked about the land. How big should the land be if someone wants to start growing chili and benefit? Now when it comes to growing, anyone can grow. Even if you have a small portion of land, you can grow. Someone with half an acre can grow and they can take care of their crops and they can be able to make a profit. That's why I advise you to grow in a big place, at least 1 acre, for you to benefit. It also makes it easy for you to get a market. For example, if your pepper is in Masaka, then you call me and I'll ask you how big, and then you'll tell me I have a 1/4 acre. Then I'll ask you how many boxes do you normally harvest, and then you tell me I harvest about 40 boxes. Now it's hard for me to come to Masaka to buy your crops unless if there are other farmers in that same area from whom I'm going to pick pepper. Then I will know that if I drive my car and come to Masaka and take 100 boxes, it's good enough for me to be able to fulfill the orders that I have. But if there is just a few boxes, it's hard for me. Now if you choose to grow and deliver by yourself, a few boxes, like 8 boxes worth 80,000, won't even be enough
to cater for your transportation from the garden to the company. Now, when you get these small returns, when you go back, you will just get exhausted and you'll slash away all the pepper. Now we got some people here who love to grow this crop. Now, you see the other side up there where you see that gentleman walking, that's hot pepper. But also that place died off. It produced those tiny fruits. When we leave from here, you'll be able to see it too. I have a lot of farmers that I work with, farmers that love doing this, that are doing an incredible job. You will see them. You will see the pepper that they have produced. Their pepper has been delivered at my collection center. You will see it. They have produced about 50 boxes together. So that was our part 6. Next time we're going to be doing part 7. Mr. Dale Crushes works with about 80 farmers, each of them growing in their property. Some of them are located in Sese Island. They have currently delivered at his collection center some of the pepper they have harvested. He organizes trainings for these farmers. When their pepper harvest increases in number, I will go with my car. We use the ferry that side of Bukakata. We load and come back. Then the company will come and pick from my collection center. It would be good if you get to visit them too and see how they do this. He organizes trainings for these farmers and he will teach them how to grow pepper for export in the right way. Then he will also buy from these farmers what they produce. This is the first sector. Partitioning the garden helps a lot. Now these farmers must have records. Now, these gardens must have records that indicate the date you started to plant. Then you will know. Before we go further, we asked about the particular flower that seemed to be left behind in the garden. This flower is the fault of those who did the weeding. It's not supposed to be there. So if you don't pass through with a panga to cut it down, it will become a problem. Now, if I go back to the records I was mentioning before, these records are helpful to you as a farmer. It helps you to know the standing of your garden. It also helps you, the farmer, to remember when you last sprayed and when you have to spray again, because you can easily forget these things. When you cross-check your records, you will be able to know that, oh, I sprayed on this date, so I will have to spray again on this date. And it will also help you to know, while you were starting, what was the quantity of the seeds that you used? What was the quantity of the seedlings that you planted in your garden? It will help you keep track of these records. You will also be able to know, when I last sprayed, what was the chemical that I sprayed? Even the very day you do scouting, you have to note it down. You note and say, oh, I did scouting on this day. This is what I discovered in my garden. This is the kind of disease I found in my garden. Keeping all these records will help you not to mix chemicals, and it will also help you to keep track of the chemicals you've used. In this way, you'll be able to maintain your garden. Now you see this plant is coming from a place of being healthy to a place of getting sick. You can recognize that the disease that has attacked it is coming right from the ground, and you see now the new leaf that is being produced is very small. Now this plant is sick. You see, if you shake it, it is dropping its leaves, which shows that it's actually sick. This disease can be treated with powdered chemical. Now, if you find such a disease in your garden and you're not sure what chemicals to use to treat it, you can just take a branch to those who are selling these chemicals, and then they'll be able to direct you on the right medication to use. If it's a disease that is attacking the leaves, being spread by insects, you can spray Harvester XL and the plant will bounce back. But if the disease is coming right from the ground,
then that will be beyond it. You won't be able to redeem the plant. That disease will be beyond you. It will mean you will just have to uproot the plant. If the disease is from the soil, just uproot the affected plant. We asked about the planting time, whether he applied the fertilizer called DAB. It all depends on the nature of your land. Now, if your land is fertile, you don't really have to use DAB when you are planting. You don't have to use fertilizers. But if your land is not fertile, then you can use DAB. Use a fertilizer while planting. There will also be a difference in the way these plants will produce. Now you see that part, I applied the fertilizer after my chili has already grown. I used a fertilizer called Java, which you apply right in the soil. Then we also asked about using cow dung as a fertilizer. Cow dung is very good, but if it's the hot weather, cow dung will affect you. Cow dung will dry up when it's hot. Then the plant will start to wilt because it will have the effect of the sun, but it won't be able to get the fertilizer that you have applied because cow dung will have dried up. When you apply cow dung on a crop like hot pepper, when it's a hot weather, you can easily see a crop where someone used cow dung because it gets heavily affected by the heat. Cow dung is very good when it's a rainy season. During the rainy season, when you see hot pepper that has cow dung as a fertilizer, that hot pepper will look extremely good. But in the hot season, your plantation will suffer a lot if you use cow dung as a fertilizer. So it's best to be used in the rainy season, and then in the hot season, you change the fertilizer. So we asked about water. If someone only has cow dung fertilizer, is there a way they can use water to avoid this cow dung from drying up? Well, he says water will help you heavily during the hot season to spray. But when it comes to pepper, we use a lot the fertilizer for the leaves than we do the fertilizer for the roots. Fertilizers for the leaves. Pepper loves fertilizers for the leaves because then it will give you progressive production. But when you apply NPK on the roots, NPK will cause your pepper plant to overproduce the fruits all at once. We have a fertilizer like Green Miracle. Green Miracle helps us a lot during the hot season. When you use Green Miracle, your pepper does not wilt a lot during the hot season. So we asked about vegetative from Osho, and he says vegetative from Osho also works really well. So we also have a fertilizer like Aminicop. So using Vigamax and attracting the bee will cause your plant to produce a lot of flowers, which will bring you more fruits. Vigamax is very good. It does not cause your leaves to wilt or to coil. It just cleans your leaf and your leaf keeps looking good. So my advice to the farmer, use heavy a fertilizer for the leaves. Even if you do not heavily apply fertilizers for the roots, use fertilizers for the leaves. That's the best thing for pepper. Like I mentioned, the fertilizer for the ground will cause your plant to heavily produce all at once, and then it will die off. But this fertilizer that you're spraying on the leaves, every time you keep applying, it keeps producing fruits. It keeps producing, so it produces throughout the whole season. We asked about what chemical or medicine can be used to help the plant to produce many flowers. When it comes to the flowers, still Vigamax will help you. Whether you had already begun harvesting and you're in your second, third harvest, you can still apply Vigamax. It will still add something. The advice he gives those who want to be able to harvest for the whole year their pepper. If you want to be able to harvest for a long time, forget about fertilizers for the soil. only use fertilizers for the leaves. The fertilizer for the soil, even though it will give you heavy produces all at once, it will weaken the whole plant. So we asked about pepper. When it grows and you have harvested, then it starts to look like it's been burnt with fire. When pepper starts to age, it has aged. There is nothing you can do about it. When it has aged, it will no longer be producing fruits for you. How long does it take for pepper to age? Now, when you plant pepper, from the time you plant your nursery bed, because the nursery bed will take 2 months. From the bed, when you plant in the main garden, give it 2 more months. Then you will start harvesting. That is in total 4 months from planting to harvesting. If you planted pepper in the month of October, when you start to harvest, you will harvest until the next year, October. But if it wasn't for these many diseases that we have these days, those days you would harvest for 2 years. You would be harvesting pepper. But now there are so many diseases, and that is no longer possible. So because of that, now it is reduced to 1 year. Now if your plantation reaches that 1 year and you still continue to put money in that plantation, you will lose your money because it will no longer produce for you. If someone has harvested pepper from this garden, can they plant in the next season in that same garden pepper? No, you cannot. If you've removed hot pepper, you cannot now plant chili. You cannot plant any other thing in the family of pepper. There will be lingering diseases in that particular portion that attacks pepper. So you have to skip a whole year before you plant again pepper. So what kind of farmer plants in the place where pepper has been? You can plant beans, peanuts, fruit, maize. They will grow because even the fertilizers in the place. See this medication that we keep spraying. Cabbages, potatoes, all that kind will come back. This plantation is very big. It goes up to that side. Now you see this part, I harvested from here last time, but as you can see, there is still more pepper to be harvested. So you don't stop harvesting. Anytime you get an order, you can go ahead and harvest. Now you see here, we harvested here last Friday. Now, today we are not harvesting here. We are harvesting the other side because last Friday we harvested here 2 bags. So now we are harvesting. How do you know that this particular chili fruit is ready for harvest? Now you see all this is ready for harvest. We rarely harvest the purple chili. It is selected out as damaged. That discoloring is normally caused by the bee. It keeps spreading and moving and causing this. So we harvest only the green. So all this is ready for harvest. As you can see it. Now this one here is young, it's not yet ready for harvest. Now this one, you can almost harvest all the fruits on it because they are all ready for harvest. So what is the right way to harvest when you are harvesting your chili fruit? Now if you harvest it like this, it will be gone. It won't be exported. So you have to harvest it with the stalk. If you harvest the chili fruit without the stalk, then it will not be taken. It will be removed as reject. So you have to harvest it with its stalk. Now, you harvest them like this. You see this? That's how you harvest the chili. That is the right way to harvest your chili, which is exactly the same thing for hot pepper. That stalk is the one that preserves that fruit. When it comes to harvesting, which one is easier to harvest? Hot pepper is easier to harvest. Now you see all these employees who are right there helping me to harvest this chili. If this was a hot pepper garden, by this time they would be done already, but it won't be possible with chili. How big is this portion of land? Well, this is exactly about 2 acres. But he does not harvest the whole 2 acres all at once. Previously, I could harvest this whole garden all at once and finish it. Pepper had not yet overly produced, but now I can no longer do that because it's very fertile and it has produced a lot of branches and a lot of fruits. So I can no longer harvest the whole garden all at once in one day. So also this garden, I only spray the leaves. I use fertilizers only for the leaves. This can save a farmer so that you do not have to spend a lot of money to buy fertilizers for the fruits too. If you want to harvest for a long time, use the fertilizers for the leaves produce way more than you do. Fertilizers for the roots will cause the plant to overly produce all at once, and it will stop producing fruits for you very quickly. But when you use fertilizers for the leaves, you're able to have fruits produced from your plant for over a long period of time, which in the end will produce more fruits for you. Does that mean when a crop produces so many flowers just like this one, does that indicate that it's going to produce so many fruits? Yes. You see this chili, it will flower as it grows. But when you do not harvest the ready fruits from the plant, then it will stop flowering. The more you harvest the ready fruits, that is when you boost growth of the new flowers. Now when you do not harvest the heavy fruits, it will destroy your plant. The plant will eventually die off. That is also the same thing that happens to hot pepper. The more you harvest, the more your garden produces new fruit. So we asked him how many people does he need to help him if he wants to harvest this whole garden all at once. This garden, now right there, I'm having about 17 people who are doing the harvest right now. If you want to harvest this whole garden all at once, you will need to have about 30 farmers, 30 workers helping you to do the harvest. So we asked about how they get paid. Do they get paid monthly or on a daily? Isn't it too expensive to hire help? Now those ones, they harvest a basin. So we calculate per basin. That is the only way you can manage them. You don't pay all of them at the same rate or at once, because some of them are hard workers, yet some of them really are slow workers. For each basin harvested, we pay that person 2,500. But the basin can produce about 5 kilograms, and each kilogram is about 2,000. You give the farmer 1 kilo per basin plus an extra 500. So if a basin is about 5 kilograms, in your calculations, you know that me as the owner, I'm going to be able to get about 3.5 kilograms. So we asked if there is someone who keeps monitoring. What if someone says, I've harvested 5 basins and they haven't? No, there is someone in there who is managing them. So every time you harvest your basin, you have to first go show it to her, and then she'll be able to note that basin down. But also from the experience I have, I know them, and I know who is able to harvest 5 basins in a day. Harvesting chili, I know that this one can only harvest about 3 basins. So there is no way that person can lie to me that he harvested 5, because no, they cannot harvest 5. So there is no way you can deceive me. Now these are the traps that I mentioned before. I put in these traps and they help trap all the flying insects in the garden. Now in the trap they place a bait inside that can, as you can see it. Now this bait attracts all the insects in the garden, the flying insects, and they will come into that bottle where they will end up dying. Now this tin is empty because this garden does not have so many flying insects. The medicine is placed in that sponge which attracts the flies to come, and they get killed in there. Now I've heard about birds. Some farmers have a challenge with birds. Birds affect hot pepper more than chili. There is also one of my farmers who just gave me a call the other day and told me birds are destroying his hot pepper plantation. Now you see this pepper, it also died off. So I removed it and I decided to plant here beans. The plantation was really big. It was going up to that side. But now hot pepper refused to grow here. I'll never grow hot pepper on this land again. So that pepper that you saw at the start, it's the same here. When it starts to bring these kind of leaves, you will just know that hot pepper has refused to grow on that land. You see the shoots are no longer growing. The shoots are not looking healthy. The leaves have grown tiny and the fruit is going tiny too. There you will just know that the land has refused hot pepper. We asked if the fruit that's there is okay. The fruits, now you see, this is all diseased. This is disease. The medicine that you can use on such a disease is Ciovet. We call it Ciovet. Now this bacteria is for the outer shell, because we were asking whether if you break it there is no moss inside.
but he said that disease, that bacteria, attacks the outer shell. And he broke it, and indeed there was no moth inside. It was just the shell that was diseased. As you can see, there is no moth. And this also comes when you do not spray. Now for us, we abandoned hot pepper in this garden, so we no longer spray it. That's why you see all this. Now I'm going to take you that side so that you can have a look at the bed, the nursery bed that I'm planting. So when we reach that side, that's when we're going to learn more about making the bed properly. Chili in this garden looks really good. It's well taken care of. As you can see, Mr. Del Gracious's land, chili garden is clean. You do not see any weeds. The fact that his chili is really healthy and fat, is it because the soil is very fertile? Now this chili, we were supposed to harvest it last Friday, the whole plantation, but we were not able to do so, so we never harvested this part. Now it has overgrown for another week. That's why you see the chili became more big, because it continued to grow for another more week after it was ready to harvest. We have to make sure we completely harvest all of them today. Now you see the other gentleman, he's also a farmer for hot pepper. We actually visited that farmer he was showing us in this garden later on. He's called Salongo. If you didn't watch, it must be probably part 13 of pepper growing in Uganda. He's one of my farmers, the farmers that we work with. Now you saw the other hot pepper plantation that died off on this land, it was his. And then mine was the one that we've just seen also that died off for hot pepper on this particular land. Now for me here, I planted as seeds from the socket and they died off. That is for hot pepper. Now the first garden you saw, the seeds we planted there, we had extracted them from our pepper fruits and they too died off. So we didn't use the same seeds. Here we used the socket, and that side we used seeds extracted from fruits. Now since they both died off, we discovered the problem is not what the type of seeds we used, but the problem is the soil. This particular soil refused to allow hot pepper growth, so hot pepper cannot grow successfully on this particular piece of land. So we had to get another piece of land where we grew pepper. We discovered this land cannot accommodate hot pepper. So Mr. Mobi planted here a small portion of hot pepper on this same piece of land just for his experiment purposes. He wants to try all the things. So he's testing different chemicals and different medications to see if they can work on this pepper here. Maybe the next time you come back here, you will ask me, you will find out the results of my experiment. So I planted this small portion. There is some medications I want to try and see. When it comes to pepper, they do not allow us to use powdered medicines, which is a lot. Now I'm going to use a lot of powdered medicines on this one, and just so I can test and see whether the diseases that affected the other pepper, it can be eradicated. Mind you, the sample garden he planted to do the tests, all the fruits from this garden are not going to be sold. It's a plantation he planted specifically for his experiments. So don't try this on a plantation you're planning to sell off. Don't use it for experiments if you are planting for export. Now you see at the beginning it really looks good and healthy. That is how the previous garden also was. But then later on in its growth, it brings tiny leaves. So I'm going to try using those chemicals we don't normally use in the gardens, and I see. So I'm going to be trying chemicals like Indophil, and I see. So I'm going to spray heavy concentrations of chemicals and medicines, and I see if that will prevent the other disease from coming. You see, sometimes I make nursery beds for my farmers. There are those that have just taken seedlings they've gone to plant. I made the bed for them, and then they took the seedlings when they are ready to plant in the main garden. Now we asked about the farmers. Does he pay them monthly? How is that? They grow their own farms. They have their gardens, they grow in their gardens, then I will come and buy. So this is the bed, the nursery bed that is ready. There was another one that side, but they came and took all the seedlings to be planted. Now this nursery bed for hot pepper is ready to be for transplanting. This looks too mature. When you transplant it to the main garden, doesn't it die off? No, it does not die off. It just continues to grow when you transplant it. So you have to plant the nursery bed in a line, just like you can see here. You do not just scatter. Now if the plants in the nursery bed they've really overly grown, this is what you can do. As soon as you transplant it, trim it. As soon as you transplant it to the main garden, trim it. You can uproot it, trim it like this, and then plant it. Now this is actually very good, because as soon as it's planted, it starts to blossom again. So he's demonstrating to us what you can do to the plant when it has overly grown, to give it a bit, to boost its growth in the garden again. You don't have to do this, but if you feel like they've really overgrown, you can do this. So as soon as these roots get firmly planted in the ground, it will produce more branches. The plant will produce more branches. Now I have some of my farmers who will tell me, oh, we have a place to grow, but we do not have seedlings, and I'll give them the seedlings. Do you just give them the seedlings, or they buy these seedlings from you? Sometimes I sell to them, sometimes I just give them. This is how you prepare your nursery bed when you are planting it at the start. Before the shoots are out of the ground, you mulch it. This protects your seeds that you've just planted in the ground. When you water can be retained in the soil. The soil will not dry up so fast. So I mulch with dry grass, which helps to contain the water. When the shoots come out of the ground, then I will remove the mulch. After I remove the mulch, the nursery bed will start growing at a fast rate. You can construct the raised mulch and put on your dry grass on top, and then keep spraying with water depending on the nature and the weather. It's the same bed as you can see also this side. The bed is really big. It is occupying a bigger space. Now you see these seedlings? It rained, and the seeds, when it rained, the seeds got exposed. The soil that was covered on the seeds was removed by the rain. So we asked if they can still grow. He said no. If the seeds are exposed and they are not covered with soil, they will not grow. So he will come back, he will have to recover them again with soil so that they can grow. They are also planted in a line. Is there a way you can prepare your seeds before you plant them in the nursery bed, or you just plant them when you bring them from the circuit? When you bring your seeds, you get a basin, pour in your seeds, then get Harvester XL and use one bottle top and pour in the basin, or you could say around 25 mils. Then you pour in the basin and add in water. You can add in about 1 liter of water. Then you make sure that your seeds are fully immersed in the water. This is if your seedlings are like half a kg, that's about 1 cup. Now these are for seedlings which are about half a kg. Just make sure they are fully immersed in that water. The seeds that come on top, just remove them. Just know those are bad, they will not grow. If you put them in this morning, leave them throughout the night until the next morning. That's when you remove them. There they will be fully immersed in water, and also the medicine will be they'll be fully immersed in the medication too. There you're immunizing diseases. That is you immunizing in the seed form before you go to plant. You can, after you remove them from the water the next morning, you can spray them. Just make sure they are dry. They are dry so that you can separate them one by one before you plant them. There are some people who ask whether they can use ash to immunize their seeds before planting.
Using ash may not be the best thing to do. Ash is used when you don't have the medication to use, but it does not work as well as the medication. You can spread them on a sack after removing them from the water the next morning to allow them to get drenched so that they can dry off. All you're looking for is them to be able to be separated, not sticking to each other. To remove them nicely, you can get that sack and then pour the whole mixture on top of the sack, which will drain the water out and leaving your seeds on top. Then after that you can spread them on that sack and then just give them exposure to sunlight just for a little bit. And when you realize that you can put them together without them sticking to each other, they can easily spread one by one. Then you can go and plant your bed. Now we asked him if after putting the seeds in the bed, does he still spray more medication in the bed? It would be good for you to protect your nursery bed from insects so that these insects do not come and eat your seeds. You may sprinkle the powdered medication after planting your seeds in the bed. You can use powdered chemicals like 7 dust. Do you know, if you know it, 7 dust? It will work very well. After the shoots are out of the ground, then you start to spray. You can spray Harvester XL and treat them that way. Manage them like that. You may spray after every 2 weeks. That will be enough amount of medication. So when you do that, by the time you transplant to the main garden, they will have received medication that will protect them in the garden. And then you also have less diseases to deal with. We asked how long does the bed take to mature. If it's a rainy season, the bed will grow in 1.5 months. Now this disease has produced, there is a black spot on this crop. This fruit has a black spot, and that black spot has multiplied itself. You know that black spot is really hard when it comes to pepper. When you harvest hot pepper fruits and there is a black spot among them, it can cause all the fruits in that particular package or box to start dripping, and they will all end up wasted. Pepper takes 4 months from the time you plant the nursery bed to the time you start to harvest. Because it takes 2 months, you count for each 2 months in the bed and then 2 months in the main garden, then you start harvesting. Now what would have been like the 5th month? You'd be harvesting. How do you care for chili? Chili is the easiest. Right after 2 months of you planting in the main garden, you will start to harvest. But the good thing about chili, exporters take it when it is still green. They don't take it when it is ripe. But for hot pepper, they want it when it's ripe, when it's ready. They don't take pepper when it is immature, unless if there is a particular order that specifically comes asking for immature hot pepper. But for hot pepper, they take it when it's already mature. Where can someone get a good seeds for both chili and hot pepper? Now with hot pepper, I cannot tell you go here or go there, because where you will go, they will give you a bad seed, the same way they did to me. But there is a gentleman called David at Icemark. They select good seeds and extract them so they can give you good seed. If you want that of chili, you can ask for Rebecca, still at Icemark. Now the process for planting in the nursery bed is the same for chili and for pepper. You still do not spray while in the nursery bed. At what point does chili and hot pepper differ in how they are grown? In the nursery bed, they are all cared for in the same way. The difference comes when you transplant to the main garden. Still, even the medications or chemicals that we use in chili are the same as those that we use in hot pepper. Though there is a slight difference in the measurements that you use, but still the insect that will cause black spot in pepper is the same insect that will cause black spot in chili. Chili does not get moth, is not affected by moth. What advice do you give to someone who is just starting, who is still wondering whether to start with hot pepper or chili? Now, I would advise if someone is starting for the very first time that they would start with growing hot pepper. Hot pepper has a very big market. It's highly demanded, and again, it's not tedious when it comes to harvesting it. Because now you see, for me to harvest this chili, the people you're seeing who are working in this garden, I go looking through all villages, picking these workers to come and work on this garden. Is there a way for you to know that this particular land will not allow hot pepper to grow, so that you do not go through the trouble of planting and then discovering it can't grow? Right now, we don't have those machines that can test the soil. They deceived us that they are going to bring us those machines as farmers, these machines that will help us to test the land, but they never brought them. Was this the first time for you people to grow hot pepper on this land? They've ever grown hot pepper on this land so many years ago, and still the same reason they stopped was that same issue. What are some of the things that you think that if a Ugandan farmer would get, they would be able to improve growing this crop for export, to grow it in a better way and in a way that will enable the farmers to even make more money or profits from the crops? Now, in the time to come, we can make good money from growing pepper if we can all work together. But the most important thing is if we all have records or documents. These records will have information like the number of plants that I planted, the number of seedlings that I planted. When I transplanted these number of seedlings. When we all have these documents or records, it will help us not to lose the global market. Because the time will come when pepper that does not have documents or records cannot be exported out of this country. Because they want to know, what have you given us? What is its state? What have you been spraying? When did you spray? And they want to make sure that you gave them good quality, the required quality. And then we have to be truthful, because there is you writing records when you are lying. Because when you do that, still your pepper will be found to have diseases and pests and chemicals. Still, they will chase us out of the market. So for us to get a good market and enjoy growing this crop, let's start with records. You've planted your pepper. When did you plant? When did you start to spray? How do you spray? When did you scout your garden? Which diseases did you discover when you scouted? What did you spray? What medication or chemicals are you using to spray? And also protecting yourself. I'm spraying, but am I spraying poisonous chemicals? Also deciding, I've sprayed poisonous chemicals to heal a disease, I'm not going to harvest. We have very tough men. Our inspectors come and they have to scout every garden and they have to find you with documents.
osobola okunoga nga baafu meka? 5. Omaze ebbanga ki ng'onoga kamulali? Hey, wow, mwebale kukola. Kyoyigirako nti nolaba yatandika mu katono ako n'aba mwesigwa ku mulimu gwe n'agukola ne gutuuka we guli kati. Nga tebayisa bulungi. Tobawa pressure yo gy'ofuna eno. Era mu bunyina gwe mbuzizaako yagambye omaze ebbanga ki ng'onoga kamulali okuba we yatandika tuli naye paka kati. When you were starting to grow, did you start with 10 acres or what? The farmers we are growing with, everyone has a small portion, but when we grow together, it becomes a big thing. The more farmers we have, the more we harvest. So if you're there and you're a farmer, do not get scared. You can grow on your small portion. For example, our farmers, one can harvest 10 basins and they will bring it. And then another will have 20 basins, another will have 100 basins. Even there are those who have grown 1 basin or 2. You can start with what you have, and then you can grow together with other farmers. When you bring what you have produced and the other brings what they have produced, together we produce more. What are some of the mistakes that farmers are making which is causing the market to fluctuate? One of the biggest mistakes is
lying, lack of integrity is a mistake. Because if they ask you, when did you last spray? And then you lie and you tell us, I sprayed yesterday, when you have sprayed today. And then we take your crops and then they check and then find that it still has chemicals. But if we, the farmers, we are honest and you say the exact thing which you did in your garden, then we shall progress as farmers and then we shall make more money. And then the market outside will increase because they will be knowing that in Uganda we produce good pepper. Then we shall get more people who are demanding to get supplied our pepper. In turn, it will increase how much we are earning. What are some of the things that you have benefited from growing pepper? 30 years that I've grown pepper. When I began to grow my first garden, I didn't even have a bicycle. That starting garden was half an acre. I didn't have anything. I didn't have a bicycle. I would walk on foot, then go and start to grow. I didn't even have workers. I had to work with my wife. Together we would grow, we would dig, we would take care of the garden. In that first garden, the box of pepper, we would sell it at 2,000. Which year was that? That was about 1999. So I began. From there, I enjoyed a lot because that small garden, I made money. And the money I made, I decided to connect electricity in my house. And then I also purchased a bicycle. Who caused you? Who interested you to start growing pepper? That was my brother. My brother had begun doing this job a long time ago. He was a supplier. He used to supply London fruits of the late Nkata. But when my brother died, he became an inspiration to me. I asked myself, why don't I just grow pepper? At that time I was about 30 years, because right now I'm 55 years. So we went with my wife, we began to grow. That is after my brother died. So they began growing together with the brother, but then after the brother died, for him he continued alone. Now in that first garden, we would harvest twice. We would harvest on Monday 50 boxes, and then we would harvest again on Friday and harvest 30 boxes. So in the week we would harvest 80 boxes, and then they would pay us 2,000 per box, and we got money. So from there, the next time I decided to grow a bigger garden. That garden was 2 acres. So when I started to harvest, I was harvesting 200 boxes. I started to get workers who helped me, but I would plant it myself. For me, the biggest thing is I make sure I plant myself, because I want to make sure that my seed has been planted well, because you can hire someone to do it and they don't do it well. So I only hire people who dig for me the holes, but I do the planting myself. And then I make sure the roots will get firmly rooted in the ground. Now God was so good to me that next garden really was very successful. Still added some other farmers, because when my brother died, he used to have farmers that he would buy pepper from. So I continued to buy their pepper. So we began to supply the company. In my own plantation, I would get 50 boxes. And then the other farmers together, they would produce 100 boxes. So we would supply 150 boxes to the company. So in that garden, in that next garden, I would harvest 200 boxes. And then I would go to other farmers and also pick their pepper too. But having records is very good. Recording is so good. Writing down, have I harvested? I've bought this chemical. How much have I bought it? I've sprayed this day. How many jerrycans of liters have I sprayed? I've harvested this much. I've sold at this much. I've made this much. I started to make records on the 2-acre garden. That's when I started to take records of what is going on in my garden. Now, the other advantage I got is during that time, pepper prices were raised to 5,000 from 2,000 per box. Now, from that second plantation, me who was driving a bicycle, I benefited from it. I made a profit of 8 million. Now, from that 8 million, I just went, I bought a car. I bought a pickup Toyota. I bought it 2.5 million. And then I remained with 5.5 million. That's when I felt like I have entered growing pepper. I was so happy because I grew and then I made money. The motorcycle that I used to use to collect pepper from other farmers, I used to hire it. Now the person who used to collect 200 boxes, now I started collecting 500 boxes. And that car which I bought, Toyota, it was second hand. I drove it for 3 years and I kept telling myself I have to drive a new car from the bond. Then eventually I went and bought a Toyota Town Ace from the bond. Now me who used to take 150 boxes, I started taking 250 boxes. And even the farmers I'm working with started to grow. I got farmers in Kalangala, farmers in Rakai, farmers in Liantonde, and I started to get known. Now I even have farmers who are in Chenjojo, and we communicate only on phone. I get pepper from Hoima and we communicate only on phone. They tell me, oh, how many boxes have you harvested? I've harvested 150. And they put them on the bus and they are sent. I worked a lot with Mr. Nkata, the late Mr. Nkata. He really taught me what this business of pepper is like. How do you manage it? Until he left us and died. Now, when Mr. Nkata died, that's when I started working with iSmark. I have farmers who approach 70 farmers. Each farmer has their own garden. I go there together with a company that I supply pepper, and then we train these farmers. And then I also work together with the Ministry of Agriculture. They will come and train us so that we can do a good job. That's how we do this business. For me, I advise people, this crop pepper has money if you do it as a job. Don't get scared. Don't lose hope. Just declare that this is what I'm going to benefit from. I started renting here in Mitala Maria. Now I have my own rentals. I have a home in Masaka which I have built. I have plots of land. I have rentals. I have a car. I even have another car which I use when I'm not working. I have so far about 7 cars. I buy and I sell it off. Then I buy a better one, I sell it off. And I no longer buy anywhere. I buy my car straight from the bond. I want to be the first one to drive it here in Uganda when it comes.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, so you worked for it.
Hey. naye tweyanziza nnyo
Thank you
mukwalo
so much for
tweyanze
giving us this time. Thank you for doing this job. And for anyone who is watching, please be encouraged. One of the good things God gave us in Uganda is our land. Our land is very fertile, and if you have land, you have every reason not to be poor. You can utilize that land to grow something that will bring an income. And also we thank people like Mr. Mobi who have worked along, who have trained other farmers and helped them also to get out of poverty by helping them to learn how to do this job together. And he has, on top of that, he has also been able to employ some others as he's doing this job. So as you do utilize your land, as you join this job, you create work for yourself and an income, and work for someone else.
bagenda kufuna ekyokulya.
Now, Mr. Mobi, even as we conclude today's video, could you please give our viewers any last parting remarks? And even to those who are watching who want to help Ugandans and they are not farmers, how can they help them?
Abalabi baffe.
Anyone can help us. We really need your help. If you are helping us, we wouldn't be like this. Get us medication that can give us medication that can help our crops. Give us acceptable medication that we can use to spray our crops, that when our crops go in other countries, it's not poisonous. This will help us to raise the standard of our crops and to do our job well. Now, for Ugandans, do not look down on yourself. Whatever you choose to do it with courage. Do it with determination that I'm going to benefit in this. Because when you are determined, you will do it with all that you can, and then you will get. But when you do it doubtedly, wondering whether you will make a profit or not, then most likely you won't. Thank you so much for visiting us. Please get some time and come back and visit our other farmers. Maybe you can visit the ones of Gomba, because Gomba is very close, unlike Sese Island. So we can visit the farmers in Gomba. Thank you for taking off the time to come and visit us today. So this was the end of our chili episode. Next time, it's going to be the start of hot pepper episodes. In our episode 12, we were showing you how paperwork looks like. Mr. Mobi in the previous episodes has been explaining to the farmer how important it is for you to have paperwork. Paperwork looks like this. You see in here, it shows you the product, what you're spraying against, and the chemical that you have used to spray, the measurement you have sprayed, the date you have sprayed, and the number of knapsacks that you have used. And then you also note down the next date of spray. So this is just an example of Mr. Mobi's paperwork. Then you can see also here product name, and then what you're spraying against, the chemical that you have used to spray, the measurements, the date of spraying, the number of knapsacks, the next date of spraying, and then you sign off. And you do this throughout your growing. Then also, this is one of the material that Mr. Mobi uses when he's teaching or training farmers. These are some of the insects that attack your pepper. We have false curdling moth, which is male, and the false curdling moth, which is female, and also how it looks like. Then it just teaches you a little bit more of the cycle. So we go ahead to see the cycle of what? So this is the cycle of citrus and the fruits that it affects. Now these more insects that attack your pepper in the garden. There is moth. This attacks hot pepper. And some of the flies that get trapped when you use traps in your garden. These are some of the insects that attack your pepper while it's in the garden. Mr. Mobi shared with us this material so that we can share it with you on camera, the way we are doing right now. So we have the African bollworm too. So he uses this to train farmers. So armyworm, I was saying it looks really good, but it's very dangerous to the crops. Thrips. Then we also checked out the shop. Mr. Mobi has a shop which supplies these insecticides and pesticides to the farmers in the area. It is fully stocked with all the required pesticides and insecticides for the pepper growing. This makes it easy for his farmers which are in the area to be able to pick the required medicine when the time is needed for these medicines. And since he's in also this particular farming, he knows exactly what will work on what kind of attack. So this is his shop, which you can find in that same place where his collection center is. As you can see, it's fully stocked with all the insecticide we've been mentioning in the video, the pesticides. This is one of the hot pepper farmers. We actually visited this guy in Orange. We visited his farm along in the upcoming pepper videos. Oh, they are already on this channel, but we will also put them up in the narrated version. I decided to have a little chat with the lady who was working in this shop. What's your name? My name is Namazi Ruth. What do you do here? I teach people how they are supposed to use these pesticides and insecticides when they are spraying their crops. Then I also sell them the medicines they need for their crops when they come to buy them. What's your relationship with Mr. Dale? Gracious? Mr. Dale is my father. So this is a daughter to Mr. Dale, and this is their shop. So she stays and works in this shop. So she has been in charge of selling these pesticides and insecticide for 1.5 years. And right outside the shop, there were other farmers who had just come from Sese, and they were doing final sorting of their hot pepper. They sort them here at the collection center before they are sent to the company. But when they are sent to their company, they get sorted again. This pepper is coming from Sese Island. So we're asking them that if they're done sorting, is it the final sorting? And they say no. The pepper gets sorted again when it reaches the company. They just reduce the amount of the reject that would go in the pepper. So they sort through and remove some of the obviously bad fruits. The pepper was really looking good, shiny and healthy. We actually visited one of the gardens where this pepper came from. So they were discussing among each other while they were sorting, and one was saying, do you know that that pepper was grown on a dry land? There is no water in the area. And one of them was saying that is impossible. And then the other one kept saying he applied fertilizers. He applied chicken droppings and other fertilizers. So they are sorting out those that are very, very ready, because if the pepper is ripe, very ripe, it's not taken. If it's ripe, it has to still have some green on it. If it's starting to turn red, it should still have some green on it. But if it's completely red, it's not taken, it's sorted out. So they are removing such. These boxes that they are using to pack in the pepper after sorting through it, they are apple boxes. These boxes are used to transport apple. Now when apples are sold off, these boxes are collected or bought by pepper farmers, because pepper farmers use them to transport pepper from the garden or collection center to the company. These apple boxes have the capacity to hold a lot of pepper and to keep it safe as it moves from one place to another. I was trying to ask him how many kilos go in that green thing, and he said things to do with kilos you better ask uncle, that is Mr. Dale. For us, our job is to sort through and that's it. So they are doing this right outside the shop. tekisobola mwasa aba akaluba ekiko ky'okungulu. Now this pepper that you're seeing, this is when it's at the company. We took some shots at the exact exporting company where this pepper gets delivered to, and this is how it's packed after it is sorted at the company. It's packed in these little boxes. Each box can accommodate 4 kilograms.
The same happens for chili. Now the chili you see here has been sorted and it has been weighed. This is Mr. Mobi's chili after it has been sorted and weighed. So this pepper here in these boxes is waiting to be taken to the airport to be exported. This is how it is transported. Now this is a sorting table, one of the sorting tables, and pepper is going through the sorting process with one of the people who do sorting at the company. The boxes vary. There are some boxes which accommodate 4 kilograms, and then there are some boxes which accommodate 5 kilograms. So they pack them here after measuring the pepper and after sorting the pepper and measuring it. If it tends to spend the night before it's taken to the airport, they keep it in a cold room. The room is cold, chilly, cool. You could say cool, not frozen. The room is not frozen, but it's a cool room which the company has where all the boxes are packed if they are not taken that very day at the airport. This paper has a hard cover. So the lady sorting was telling us that this pepper is a bit heavy, that when the garden is just starting to produce pepper fruits, that pepper is normally not heavy. That pepper of the first harvest is normally light. And remember, since they take it in kilos, if your pepper is light, it means it takes more to create the kilos they want. So she was saying this pepper is quite heavy. It seems this is like the second or third harvest. So I was asking her, do they have to check it again, weigh it again, sort it again when it's full? And she said no, they don't. The only thing remaining after she's done sorting through, she will go and weigh that box to make sure that it's the required kilograms. It's under the right now it's in the hands of the company. This is how the company prepares it before it's taken to the airport. So that's it, guys. This has been our video today. If you have any questions in regards to this, you can leave it in the comment section below. This was Mr. Mobi who took us through the training, explaining to us, because this is his full-time job. And some of you kept asking me what is his number. I left his contacts in the description box of the full episodes of Growing Pepper in Uganda. You can find that contact there.